All right, we're back at it, convening again for another lovely Chatcast. On this installment, we're going to talk about dealing with expectations. So, how to deal with your expectations and other people's expectations as an artist pertaining to your art or, I guess a project you're working on. So, as always, since I generate the questions so far, I feel that it's only fair that I kind of start it so it starts a precedence for the conversation. So with that being said, I'm just checking to make sure I'm still in frame. I am. What do you have to deal with these expectations? So often I feel like this is the pitfall in an art project, is dealing with your expectations or someone else's. And a lot of times what happens is that you aren't even honest with yourself. And sometimes a person doesn't know what kind of information they have to supply as an artist. So there's several layers to this, and I'm sure that you have even more feedback than I do. But so what do I mean by this? I've had to always really feel like that when I'm dealing with another person. I'll start there because I feel like it's a little bit easier to kind of talk about. I feel like you gotta dig a whole lot out of someone else to get to their expectations. And oftentimes that can, nearly stifle your creativity, because a lot of your creative energy on a project can be used just trying to figure out what you're even expected to do. And so you've got to kind of ask the right questions. You've got to, lead the person through different things. And sometimes too is that their expectations clash with yours. And that's, I think, when you run into issues, especially collaborating with other creatives and artistic types. But, so that's what I'm saying. There's so many layers of this that you can deal with. Looking at it as, whose expectations is this other person? Is it another artist? Is it an artist that does the same thing that you do? Or is just another artist as a component of what you do? And then from there, if it's a layman, that's a whole other set of issues in how you can go about pulling this information from there. And one of the things that I would like to submit is that the expectations tend to be easier if you can try to have some kind of shared vocabulary in the situation.
Yeah.
Like what you're describing isn't you being too studious or specialized in your language to where it confuses a person or they don't really know what you're getting at. And then also it comes down to when you have done that the right way, and then when you present your art and it doesn't deliver according to the other person's, your client or the collaborating artist on that, what do you do with that? And often from my experience, that's when I was younger, I guess I should say that I kind of took it personally, but not. That's what it felt like. It was more so just that's what you get. Whatever. I'm not going to try to fix anything or do much with it. And it ended up damaging relationships senselessly in some circumstances when I should have been more mature and figured out how to put all of that away and just kind of figure out maybe how to bend and shift a little. I don't want to keep hogging up that time talking about that, because as you can tell, I feel like we could spend 2 months worth of Chatcasts talking about just dealing with client expectations versus collaborative artist expectations.
Yeah.
Or what I'm getting ready to say before I pass it buck to you, which I feel like I have some more potent information with, is dealing with your own expectations. Because there's so many variables with the other person that I feel like dealing with your expectations, maybe if you learn how to do that first, it can help you navigate the minefield of the outside world. And often when I find that comes with like a twofold thing. It's like getting your vision to match up with your skill set. Sometimes, like, that seems to be what it is. It's like your vision expands as your skill set expands, but then also you living up to your expectations is heavily dependent on you being able to deliver with your skill set a lot of times. And then, are you setting realistic goals for yourself? Are you giving yourself, you got to think that sometimes when you're aspiring to be something or do something, that you're looking at someone that's 2 decades into the process. And then you're sitting there looking at yourself and you have 2 decades worth of expectations, so to speak, piled onto yourself, which is kind of unjust even to yourself. So again, I could talk for a long time about that, but mainly from my point of view, the hardest part about dealing with your expectations for your own self is making sure that you got to realize your skill is matching up to what your expectation is, and that you're not trying to price yourself out of your own job. I don't know, that was kind of a bad analogy, but I think you can pick up what I'm putting down on that.
Yeah.
So what is your insight on this? How do you deal with expectations of others and yourself? And if you don't have any definitive answers on that, that's fine, because this is such an open-ended thing. I don't expect any laser-pointed clarity on it, but what do you got rattling around?
So, for me, like, thinking of managing expectations for others and then myself, I feel like I have to deal with learning how to manage my expectations before I can manage my expectations that involve other people, because there's basically 2 different ways that I have to manage my own expectations, and that's not setting the bar too high for myself, which sounds, I don't know, like you don't believe in yourself maybe, but that's being realistic. And so setting a goal that I can achieve, but also like this is my expectations of quality with time and everything like that. But then also, so not setting the bar too high, but then also with my expectations, making sure that my expectations aren't too rigid either. Because if I have rigid expectations and the project isn't flowing into those expectations, that can in turn make me feel discouraged, want to quit, want to give up, feel disinterested in what I'm working on. Whereas it's like Bob Ross used to call things happy accidents. Mm-hmm. Is there would be things that he would do when he was painting that he didn't intend to do, but he welcomed the accident because it added something interesting, because he was willing to allow it to be a part of the painting now. And so that was a happy accident. So that's a good example of like not having rigid expectations, being open to the ebb and flow of your content. And so if you can do that with yourself, then when you commercialize your creativity and you deal with a client, I think then you know how to manage expectations in yourself, because you're not looking at them and thinking, oh, they're coming to you for a design and this is what I think they should do, because they're coming to you and they have a vision in their head, like you said. But at the same time, it's not going, they want your input. Some people don't, and that's frustrating when people just want to basically use you like a marionette because they can't draw or design or use something. That can be frustrating, but that's just something you deal with. But managing your expectations of what you're dealing with in another person is like, do they want you to have 100% control over their brand and say, this is what I think you should do because it would look cool? No, they don't. So if you manage that expectation of yourself, when they come back to you and they're like, I don't like this logo that you made or the colors, you don't take it with personal offense, and it doesn't take the wind out of your sails because you've managed your expectations in dealing with them. And so I feel like that's kind of how I sit in that realm, is I have to make sure that I'm looking at myself, making sure that I'm not being too lofty with my goals, I'm not being too rigid with my expectations, and then once I have myself under management, then it's easier to deal with other people in that way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that. You know what I like about this is that oftentimes we end up really essentially saying the same thing,
Yeah.
but from two different angles. And I feel like that it gives the viewer, the listener, a nice overall better picture than just one perspective.
Right.
Because we're essentially, offering the same solution for the same problem and then coming at it from different angles. And it has a more holistic kind of an answer. So anyways, that's this Chatcast about expectations, your own, dealing with somebody else's also. So, hey, hope you'd enjoyed. You know what we do. We do our things on that Monday, on that Wednesday, on that Friday. This one was on Friday. We're going to be back next Friday to do another one of these talks. Adios.
Adios.